Good afternoon, and you're welcome to another exclusive interview powered by News.Band Television. I am Augusta Neka. Now, today we are still going to be talking about Anambra 2021 election. Is a credible, legitimate election possible? And here as our guest, we have Paul Ejime. He is an international affairs specialist. Thank you so much, sir, for coming.
Thank you for having me, Augusta.
Now, with your vast experience and knowledge, in your opinion, what can you say to be a credible election?
So, an election is a process that is uh, divided up into three stages, what you now call electoral cycle. And then the first stage relates to pre-election activities. These are, registration, voter education, and sensitization and all that. Then you get to activities during the second stage, which is on the day, during the election itself. That is what happens on the day of election. Then you have post-election. Post-election relates to the fact that in Africa, election has become, triggers or drivers of political violence, because politicians at times they refuse to accept defeat. And so if you don't have any crisis during pre-election or during election, now when the results are declared, that is when the problem now starts and can drag on. It can lead to civil war. We have seen it in Cote d'Ivoire and other places. So these are three critical stages that will have a bearing on whether an election from the beginning has the credentials or what it takes to be called credible or transparent. So at times they will tell you that rigging of election could even start with the registration. Okay, so if this phone, sorry, a call is trying to come through. Let me just get it out of the way, please.
No problem,
okay,
sir.
Yeah, we are trying to disturb. Yeah, okay. So if you don't think that the rigging will be on the day of election or after, but it can happen on any of those three stages. That is why what happens from one stage is critical to what you may call to having a peaceful, successful, credible, or transparent election. But so it begins with the pre-election phase to tell you whether there are the factors that will make for that election to be credible. So it is not on the day of election that you determine that. It is before. What happens before, during, and then after. So that is for instance, registration of voters has been skewed, has not been properly done, you cannot expect it will become garbage in, garbage out. If the process from there is flawed, you are not likely going to get a credible election. And if on the day of election you had vote buying, intimidation, and all kinds of things, you are not going to have a credible election. And if after election, one party refuses to concede or to accept defeat, you are also going to have a problem. And these forces that play during these three stages will then determine whether an election is credible or not. And then, so it points to the activities or actions of the actors. And who are they? One is the electoral body, the umpire. They say that an election is as credible as the electoral body, okay, the integrity of the electoral body. And then you look at securing of votes. What did you do? What did the security system do to secure the votes of voters? And also, how did the voters then make sure that their votes were secured, that they voted and their votes were counted? Okay. Then you look at the electoral law. Is it amenable? Does it support democratic principles? So there is a whole gamut of things that go into whether an election, which is a process, can be described as credible or non-credible.
Okay, now looking at the state of affairs in Anambra State, with the insecurity challenges we are currently facing, and now I'm talking about the pre-election stage, do you think that that process was credible enough?
Well, I will say, if you want us now to depend on what we read from the media, because one is not there. Otherwise, having served as an observer of an election, it is always good to be on the ground to see, observe what is happening, to be able to give, a very reasoned account or assessment. But if we were to go by what we are reading with the security challenges, which is not only in Anambra but across the country, but now zeroing in on Anambra State because of the election, I don't think what is coming out presents any what you call factor or confidence that there is likely going to be a credible election. One has seen the police talking about domination of the place, and then having about 550 plus 5, that's about 55,000 policemen to go there. And then at times, it now boils down to intimidation. Are the voters now free under this kind of condition to come out and with tanks and all that? Are they free to go and cast their ballot? And with what has been happening before now, the unknown gunmen and then allegations of IPOB, intervention, those things do not lend themselves to a credible election. That is why at times those who are involved in election, they send what you call fact-finding mission to go and find, survey, do some monitoring and evaluation of what the situation is. For instance, I'll tell you that ECOWAS in 2011, when they sent a fact-finding mission to the Gambia, then under former President Ejime, who is now exiled in Equatorial Guinea, ECOWAS came back, the experts that went there came back and said, well, listen, that the environment did not lend itself to factors that this was not conducive for having a credible election. And what did ECOWAS do? They did not send observers now to go there. Because if you did, you will only be trying to legitimize a process that is not legitimate, that is flawed. So that is one example, that when the assessment now gives rise to the fact that, it is not conducive to the principle. And what are these conduciveness that we're talking about? Is voters free to go out? And then is the security environment one that will allow people to go and cast their vote without intimidation, without fear? And then security, and then the umpire. What is the perception? What is the confidence of voters to go out? And because if you now call a vote that only very few people, if the turnout, for instance, becomes 20 to 30%, it questions the legitimacy and credibility of that election. But if you now had the turnout, a credible election is one that will allow people to vote without let or hindrance, and will provide electoral materials will be there on time, electoral officials will be there on time, there is no intimidation, there is no fear, and then there is security of votes, and then the voters, everybody, all the citizens. So these are the factors that make a credible election.
Okay, just before I continue with the security topic, now you mentioned something that just caught my interest. What percentage of people need to participate in an election in order to make it legitimate and acceptable?
Well, okay, here it is what I will call contextual. In other words, it is not just what happens. You don't have a rule of the thumb that it must be this type, this percentage. It depends on one, what is the percentage of those who voted? Eligible voters, how many registered, And then on the day of election, how many votes were cast, how many were nullified, and for what reason, and where people, that is why you find that umpires, if they notice that election in particular places do not cannot be held or were threatened, then they will go back and do another one. They are rescheduled. So it is a complex issue, but I think now let me also give you the example of Cape Verde, where I'm just returned. Cape Verde held a presidential election on the 17th of October, and then the turnout eventually became about 47.9. Okay, let's say 48%. In other words, that the rate of abstention was 52.01%. And it raises a flag, because an election where those who participated who did not participate are more than those who took part, questions will be asked. Why did they not vote? What happened? And in the case of Cape Verde, it was people getting fatigued. One, the government in power has done 2 terms, and then they were now going, the president is not running. But 2 parties have also dominated the entire political landscape since independence. So you get all these things that will get voters tired. They say, well, it's deja vu. There is no change. The change will be having between the 2 parties. Or if it is by intimidation, if you now have fear, if they are afraid, or there is no confidence, that's another thing. If the voters' confidence has begun to wane because of the fact that government have not delivered the dividends of democracy, that phrase again, then that is a challenge. So it is contextual. It is a case-by-case thing. You don't use what has worked in Cape Verde to say it will work for Anambra or for other places.
Okay, talking about the security situation now, currently we have heavy presence of security agents in Anambra State, and federal government will tell you that this is to dissuade people that are promoting the agenda of no election. Do you think this is enough to inspire confidence in Anambra people?
I think it's a challenging situation, both for the voters and the government at the state level and then the federal government. And I think they needed to find a solution. It is not really by amassing troops that will, okay, after that, what happens? What about reprisal that will happen after you must have done? The troops cannot stay there for forever. So at one point they have to pull out, leaving the people to sort out things by themselves. So what happens is that there has to be some engagements of all the stakeholders. And who are they? Security, electoral umpire, the electorate, civil society, everybody. The process of election involves a lot of stakeholders. It's not just, no one person can do it alone. The media and everybody, because the kind of reporting that comes out of that place can also play a part in how people perceive, whether people are now, they become afraid, whether they are panicky or they are now running into their shell and say, listen, nothing is going to come out of this election. So it is a mixed bag of a lot of things, and requires every stakeholder to play their part. The security must play their part. The government, political elite, political parties must play their part. The media and the electorate themselves holding their people to account. I saw a video of where somebody was distributing some money to a group of people, and it was asking them, have you registered? Do you have a voter's card? Vote buying and all that. Godfatherism. Those things must be taken out, because part of the problem we have in Nigeria is the monetization of the electoral process. It's been weaponized. Money has been used to chase out, to disenfranchise a lot of people. Those who have ideas do not have money. And then those who have money, they don't have ideas. This is the context. How did a country like Cape Verde, how did they try to get around this? I have done a piece now on what I call the lessons that Africa can learn from there. One of them is that the candidates are not required to pay any fee for running for political office. This idea, for instance, in Nigeria, where in the amendment bill, they're asking a person who is going to run for presidency to deposit about $15 billion naira. And then you say, where? That is already an invitation to corruption. Because when they now bring, if the person who is a candidate may be a very good candidate but does not have the money, then he needs money. He goes to those who have. Remember this same Anambra where you had kidnapping of a governor, okay, godfatherism. So when now somebody makes it opens their wallet for you to become a governor or somebody in government, they will come back and ask for their pound of flesh, and they will now poison the democratic, the political environment. Because the country, that state or that is no longer going to serve the people, but it will now be serving those who made it, who provided, who bankrolled the election for those who won. Because they will try to recoup what they have done there. So a country, that's one lesson that perhaps other countries can learn. Don't make it too difficult, because it creates, it doesn't create inclusiveness. If you have to ask for somebody to go and bring 15 billion naira, where? You are actually telling them to go and steal, and yet you say you are fighting corruption. So you can see the contradiction. These are some of the things. And then this issue of transmission, electronic transmission of votes, that was also, it played out in Cape Verde. Why? When they finish the voting, the candidates' agents will certify the result. They count the votes, and then they certify what has happened. It is now sent. There's a tablet, just like a small laptop that you now send what has been recorded, what has been certified. It goes straight to the database of the electoral management body. And then what did these people do? They also set up a website run by the two institutions that are running the election: the the National Electoral Commission, and then the directorate that supports election. They set up this website powered by what you call the data center, which was set up to help them manage the thing. What happens is that within 2 hours or 3 hours after the election, you are now having the results on that website. They call it provisional result, but it did not vary so much from what was eventually announced as the official result. Why? Because the credibility, the transparency started from the polling station, from where the results were now transmitted electronically to the central database. So these are some of the issues. But where you have a situation, I hope that the Parliament, the National Assembly eventually agreed to the electronic transmission of votes, because the idea of hand carrying these papers lends itself to manipulation. On the road, somebody can now, maybe they have written their own result, they can change it or try to manipulate it. So electronic transmission, if it is applied, can also be. I think I tried it in Edo and then Ogun State. So if they use it in Anambra, it will also. But before we get there, let us have a level playing field where people are allowed to vote without let or hindrance, without intimidation, and without fear. That is how we will now get to that bridge before we cross it of transmission.
Okay, remember that you can join this conversation simply by raising the digital hand. I'll try to accommodate us much questions and comments as possible. Now, talking about the electoral process itself, we recently saw news of ad hoc staff, core members that are now INEC ad hoc staff resigning due to challenges. Do you think it's going to pose a hindrance for the election?
What? The ad hoc staff were doing what?
Ad hoc staff resigned from and said they were not going to participate in the election. Will this pose a hindrance?
Why did they resign away? Why did they say they are not going to participate?
Security challenges.
Security
challenges.
Well, that's what we are saying. And I hope that INEC has enough time to be able to replace those that are saying they are not going to participate. Because if on the day of election, you have some polling stations that are not manned, it's going to create a problem. That could lend itself to, electoral fraud. Because those who are there, if the ad hoc staffs are not there, one is that you may also not have electoral material, and then you don't have personnel. Then there is a big challenge. There is a big question mark on an election that is held where you do not have the electoral agents. It's going to be a big challenge. So but I hope that if it was noticed in time, if their resignation was in time, they can be replaced and they are replaceable.
All right. I think if Augusta is not here, I will ask my own question. It will be, in your opinion, what progress have been made in Nigeria since 1999 in organizing credible elections?
Well, having worked closely with INEC,
it says, in your opinion, what progress has been made in Nigeria since 1999 in organizing credible elections?
Okay, yes, Augusta, I think you are repeating the question that Dan has asked. The process or the progress may not be very visible, or quantifiable, but they are there. One is the process. Look at we are now at the level of electronic transmission. INEC has been, after every election, there is always a panel that is set up to review what happened there and then make recommendations. And what the challenge has been that some of these recommendations are not carried through. But I can tell you that those that have been carried through have resulted in some, what you call them, it might not be too big or so visible, but it has been some incremental progress in the way that INEC have had to carry out its role. That is one. Two, the lessons. The question will now be what lessons have been learned from the challenges or weaknesses that we have found in the past. I will tell you that the lessons, it will appear the lessons are slow in coming through because of the non-implementation of the recommendations that always came after each electoral process. If they have been followed through, I think we will be some way ahead, or at least better than where we are today. So it is still, for instance, one of the problems today is what do you do with those who have violated the electoral code? Those who rigged the election. Those you can at least maybe count them on your fingertips. Those who have been taken to court and convicted. Meanwhile, INEC will tell you that they are burdened with more than 1,000 cases related to election. Most of them have to do with party primaries and all that, because parties are not being, they are not following, they lack what you call internal democracy. So every time things go to court, and remember also that this is a situation where we now have the courts almost hijacking the declaration of results of elections instead of ballot paper and the polling stations. That is not a good, that is not a progress. In fact, it is a retrogression. If after elect voters will vote, but it is the courtroom will determine what the result of the election. That is not democracy. So the judiciary, the parliament in the way of looking at the laws, electoral acts, and what ought to be amended so that we have a seamless of at least some ease in election. Then the electoral body also looking at it and coming up and asking questions and making progress, making some amendments based on what has from the what you call the post-mortem, the review of the last election will always help them to do better. That is the expectation. And but it's a multi-stakeholder issue. If the parliament does not cooperate, we are going to have problem. If the executive does not cooperate by not obeying the laws, we are going to have problem. And then if the security apparatus does not cooperate, there will be problem. You see, so, and if the media does not cooperate by, reporting inflammation of passion and hate news or fake news, it is also they are not playing their part. So everybody has, and the electorate themselves, they gain nothing by just collecting money, during the election and leaving the politicians to run roughshod until another election cycle before they give you, is it 5,000 naira or bag of rice or whatever, or bread, and then you vote for whoever, people who are not qualified, and you cannot hold them accountable. So everybody has a role to play and must play that role before you have an environment that will lend itself to credible election or election with integrity.
Okay, I can see another question in the chat box, and it says, you have monitored elections in several African countries, including Nigeria. How do you rate Nigeria vis-a-vis other African countries?
Well, I will not go into the temptation of putting all of them in one box and then take it out and say, well, 100%. I will need to take them by, in context. For instance, in Cape Verde has a population of less than 600,000 people. Okay, that is not to say that smallness of number must always equate a successful election with integrity. After all, you have a country like Guinea-Bissau and others that are small, but they have not been able to achieve or do what Cape Verde has done. So I will say, by Nigerian standards, Nigeria still has a long way to go. In terms of what we are now seeing in what we have seen in Cape Verde, I have detailed some of those lessons that can be drawn, and also the challenges that Cape Verde itself is still facing. Okay, we talked about the high number of abstention, 52% or more. That is not, if a president is voted by less than 50% of people of the electorate, then it means that there is something wrong. So every process, and that is why election is a process. It is not, something you put in a box and then you go and take it or implant. It grows, it evolves. And by having institutions that are strong, that can withstand. You will notice what happened in America recently, in January. When a sitting president there, did not want to accept the result. And then his supporters went to attack the hollow chambers of the Capitol. And so, but for the fact that the system has been there for a long time and can now withstand a lot of what has happened. Otherwise, it was enough to throw America off balance, if it has not already done so. But that is the danger. That is what, so everybody is learning. Democracy is not, there is no perfect election, and there is no perfect system. But what you need to do, let there be that commitment. Let there be the determination at the national level and by all the stakeholders to make sure that, to say, well, we want things to work. In Cape Verde, I go back there, the president earns less than $4,000 a month. He lives in an apartment. He does so that he'll be able to draw subsidy, accommodation subsidy. He has only 3 cars. So you don't need to close the road when the president is passing, okay? And then the president suspends his term whether he's running or not running. Once the candidates submit themselves to their candidature, they suspend, the sitting president suspends his term, and then can only go back after the election results have been announced. You cannot use state apparatus to campaign when you are in office, whether or not you are running. These are some of the, and then again, I talked about pre-election. During voting, they have a challenge about having a national database, biometrics, registering of voters. What they have now done is say, listen, with your national ID card or international passport, you can vote. They vote, they don't need to, they are not saying, you must have a card that is, so it is valid. Once it's a valid national ID card, you can use it to vote. I know in Nigeria, it can create a challenge, but it can be done to get to the point where the biometric registration will now take care, the immigration, customs, INEC, Nigerian Communications Commission, Bank BVN, and then what else? And so forth, so on and so forth. If citizens are captured in that one single chip, you can use it for virtually everything, even for election. So you don't need to now begin to do, going by cycle and spending money over registration. And some people being disenfranchised or saying, we didn't get our voters card. By getting your national ID card that is valid, you are allowed to vote. And by the way, it happens both for people at home and then in the diaspora. There are more Cape Verdeans people with Cape Verde descent abroad than they have in the country. But what they have also done is that those in diaspora must not be more than 20% of those who live on the island. So these are some. So you look at the normative framework, the electoral framework, the constitution. That is where you begin now to build on what will lead you into having an election that is near perfect, is not perfect, and that can also lead you to results that will be respected by everybody, that is acceptable. But when the registration is flawed, then the voting is there is a problem, and then the results will normally be questioned, and that way it will never be credible. Even particularly for those who are losing, they will tell you that it is not. Otherwise, everybody will blame the electoral umpire. When that is the trademark of politicians. When they win, the electoral umpire is a good institution. But when they lose, they say they blame every other person but themselves.
Okay, okay, so another question. It says, seeing the security challenges facing the Anambra election, what do you suggest for the Nigerian authorities to put in place to encourage Anambra citizens to come out and vote?
I think the train has already left the station. We have only how many days to go? Today is 4th, so the election has been called for the 6th. So there are things that you cannot do now, even when you had a good intention. If you cancel it now because of security challenge, some people will complain. If you say you go ahead, people will also complain. So there has to be a middle ground. There is still room for all the stakeholders to meet. One is to appeal to the security agencies. It is not languages like going to dominate, going to bring all the armored tanks in the wall and everything, and then what is it called? Fighter jets and so on and so forth. Good. But that, the world, when they see that, they will say, who is at war? And this war is between who and who? And if there is a war, what guarantee are you giving? How do you want people to come out and go and vote? So they have now, the voter is between, they will tell you, their military or the security will tell you, well, we are trying to prevent these gunmen or those who are causing this trouble from coming. Fine. At the same time, we are human beings. When you have guns all over you roaming, somebody will say, no, I value my life more than vote. So they stay at home. And then what will happen, it may lead to an outcome that is questionable in so many ways. One, if, for instance, 500 people registered to vote, and then you ended up with 100, for God's sake, well, you will say, well, they have voted, so let it be. Fine. But it shows that some people have been disenfranchised by no fault of theirs. And you cannot fault somebody who says, well, I am not going there. He doesn't want to die, because of what? Because of these politicians. So one will say, it is still not late. Let everybody cease fire. Let everybody embrace peace. Let the voters know, be given, let their confidence and trust be restored in the system by the fact that the security people are there, not to frighten people, to assure them that they are not there to threaten them or to make them panic or to, show power. You are showing power against who? Meanwhile, the country is facing, greater problems somewhere with Boko Haram and bandits. They're also there. And you are deploying 50,000. If I heard the police officers correctly. Yes, you will say that dominating the place was this same language that Donald Trump used, asking people to dominate. But it shows that the civil, system is not working or has failed. That is why you now begin to apply, what is it called? Military strategy to now come and, this is a civil, an election. It's a peaceful process. It's a civil process and should not be militarized. So in Cape Verde, let me also name them that again. The policemen, they have about less than how many? 1,000 somewhere policemen. Only 300 of them were deployed. And what were they doing? To just be by the precinct of the polling station. I didn't see them inside the polling station. So when we get to that level where the people have the confidence and the trust to go walk into the polling station and cast their ballot without intimidation, without somebody looking over their shoulders, then that we would have arrived. And also to the point where people can even stay at home or wherever they are and vote without even getting to the polling station. You saw that happened in America. It will always be questioned. Some people will say, well, that one is not, it lends itself to some, to abuse and whatever. But no system is perfect. But we should allow the system we have signed on to grow, respect it, and then the rules, and let it grow to the point where it becomes too strong that no single person, not even the military, can shake it. No matter how powerful a politician is, no matter the amount of money that he has, the day when the system, the political system, the electoral system will be able to withstand all these assaults and lead to a credible result, that is when Nigeria will talk about elections with integrity.
Okay, just before I read the next comment on chat box, you mentioned something about being aware. Do you say that should be unburdened, and some of. Did you get? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, but partly. Please, can you repeat the question? Whether INEC should be unbundled, or whatever.
Yes, that's what I asked.
Yes, I think so. I think the senior officials of that commission have said so in so many ways. Because listen, part of the reason that people who rig elections or violate electoral laws are not prosecuted is the fact that INEC cannot prosecute. Okay. Prosecution is left with the police and others. So INEC can also cry about what is facing, but it cannot prosecute. And when it is summoned to court, it has to go to court. So that is part of the issue. And then the unbundling that you're talking about, I will give the Cape Verdean example now. The Electoral Commission just is involved in the conduct and regulation of elections. There is another agency that is concerned with what you call providing electoral support to providing support to the electoral process. They call it the GAP, DGAPE. It is the General Directorate for Support to the Electoral. Those ones, their job, those ones are concerned with logistics. When we got there, we saw that on the day, a few days to the election, they were already making preparations for, in case there will be, because we saw some voting material there. We said, so you mean the materials have not gone? They say no, that this is for the anticipation of the second round, which was to take place 2 weeks after the 17th October. They were supposed to hold the second round on the 31st of October. The first round, 17th, the second round was to take place 31st. But we got there, we say, what's happening? You people have not distributed. We got there 2 days to the time. We say, so this, they say no, that they have already moved the one for the 17th. It was just for, and that those were the ones that are waiting to just go. Because apart from Cape Verde itself, they were sending these materials to 21, or is it 21 or 31 other countries where Cape Verdeans reside for the diaspora vote. So you can see how effective and efficient they are. And apart from that, there is also another commission. They have 22 of them in the whole country. They are involved with, they call it Voter Registration Commission. So you see, the three aspects, electoral operation and support is with this General Directorate. Registration is with the commission. And then the main conduct and regulation of electoral process is with the National Electoral Commission, which they call CNE in Portuguese. So that now simplifies everything for everybody. But in our own case, I think everything is lumped on INEC, which has I'm hoping that by the time they have the next election, they will be thinking about 90-something to 100 million voters. The Cape Verdeans, they had about 400,000, but they have this structure that facilitates work for everybody. And so you knew what you were going to do. You don't have to burden yourself with logistics or registration like we have here, and then all the other, and then prosecution. So that way, I think INEC is overburdened, and that should be looked into. So that is the way to do it. It might be late now, but I don't know whether they still have time to look at the Electoral Act of the Amendment Act of 2021, whether that can be accommodated. And then the issue of punishment, consequences for those who have violated the electoral law. It is important because it is that inability to punish them, that impunity, that has allowed the practice to continue. If those who violated the laws or rigged the elections are made scapegoats of, made to serve as a deterrent against future abuse. I know there have been one or two. I mean, an INEC official or somewhere that was elected and that was punished. But that is still few and far between. There should be more. With what we are seeing, people are going away, they are escaping with a blue mother because of impunity, because there is no consequence. And that is where one area that I think should be tightened so that, because it comes, like I said, the electoral law, the framework, then the conduct of all the stakeholders will all coagulate and get into what will make for an election that is with integrity, or credible and transparent election, if you like. I don't know whether that any election will ever be called free and fair, but for transparency, yes, for credibility, yes. So we are still a long way from there.
Okay, remember that you can join this conversation simply by raising up your digital hand. I'll try to accommodate as much questions and comments as possible. Now, we saw another comment on the chat box, and it says the US has issued a warning to politicians, making sure that they shun violence during the elections. And the question is asking, will that have any impact on conduct of elections?
In the first place, an election is a national sovereignty responsibility. It doesn't have anything to do with external forces, but it is because of the failure of the process. That is why, and even governance, that is why external forces are now meddling. Otherwise, what role did Nigeria play when America was holding their own election? You will ask. But because Nigeria has allowed itself, because one is either you are going there to seek validation, or you are going there to ask for one thing or the other, you have made yourself vulnerable. And that is the reason you are now listening to what America will say about your own election. Otherwise, it's a sovereign state. It's a sovereign national responsibility. It didn't have anything to do about what America say or doesn't say. But again, since we have gotten ourselves to this part, that is why they are using all those to checkmate certain things. The idea is that those who want to, and I tell you, they listen to them. Politicians know, particularly those who have to run to America or who have business there, or will seek America's validation. They better watch it, because America will get at them. It would be good if Nigeria were the ones to take care of their own people. Those who committed crime in the country are treated, are dealt with under the law, instead of allowing external forces or another country to begin now to punish those who rigged the election in Nigeria, when Nigeria itself cannot do anything about it. Just like the case of former Governor Iburi, who was given a clean bill of slate when he was being tried for, was it money laundering and whatever. But now he got to the UK and was charged and convicted for virtually almost the same case. But in Nigeria, the Nigerian judicial system had cleared him. So what inconsistency? So are we now waiting for other countries to come and validate or to try our own alleged criminals? Is that what we want? And also now wanting them to be the ones to determine how we perform in our elections? And then yet we call ourselves a sovereign state, an independent country. So you see, I have issues with that, but because we have fallen to that level where we are not, our own system is not self-writing, is not able to contain those issues. That's why we are now going to America and maybe EU. We now run to them to say, please catch us, help us catch a thief that has stolen our something from Nigeria. We can't catch them here. and then we say, please, oh, we are running to other. It shows that we are really, we have a long way to go.
Okay, we'll just take this one participant and we would round up. Okoye, I can see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, Augusta. I have a question for your guests, because there's something that always sort of baffles me, something I don't understand with regards to these elections. There are so much noise, so much bloodshed, so much row, so much dust raised, yet our people don't go out and vote. How do you explain that? Can your guests please make sense of it for me? Because I don't understand it. Thank you.
Okay, you are saying that in spite of the odds, all the obstacles that are people still go out to vote. Is that the question, sir?
No, the question is, why is there so much row, violence, bloodshed, and still our people don't go out and vote? What?
Okay, yeah, why? Okay, I wish I knew the reason. I think in a way, it also says something about the resilience in the Nigerian spirit, if you like. That they wanted to make a point to say, listen, we, and that is good, because they will tell you that freedom is not given. All right, you have to go and take it. Look at what is happening in Miami, the former, what is the country called before, where the military took over, and they are killing people, but they are still going there to protest, okay? And in Sudan and other places, and the so-called, those Arab Spring and all that. They came, even in Burkina Faso here, the military will come with their might and they want to kill them, but they say 1 million people, Burkinabes, came out before Blaise Compaoré was chased out of government after more than 20 years. So it is that spirit that must be encouraged. I think I will not even want Nigerians, I don't want them to be, scared of exercising their civic responsibility because of, but it is not a normal situation for elections to be turned into a war situation, a do or die affair with bloodshed and violence. It is not, I'm coming from Cape Verde, I told you. The thing passed off as if people were dancing and all that. You didn't need to. Why must you kill? To win an election? Is your political ambition worth the blood of these people? And if you kill everybody, whom are you going to rule over? I mean, that is the question that the politicians must answer, because they are the ones behind all this, what is happening today. It is the political class, their greed, corruption, avarice, and then the fact that they are now manipulating the system. At times they play religious card. At times they play ethnic card. When it pleases them, or they feather their nest. They're only interested in their family or their tribe, or people from their area. And for God's sake, if you are in authority, you are there to look to the welfare of everybody. God has put you there to take care of other people. It doesn't matter whether they are from your place. And for God's sake, don't go and put only people from your place in there. If you have a country of 200 million people, you are not telling me that you cannot find people from other places that you can work with. I mean, it's been done before and can be done again. Look at merit, look at excellence, look at experience, and look at the power, the ability to deliver. Not where you are coming from, not the language you speak, not your tribe, not where you are coming from, but what you can give. I think that is what is important. And I think until and unless our politicians realize that and play by the rules, what they are doing is not sustainable. If they like, I think the electorate, they are telling them, well, come and kill us, but one thing should happen. It's not also for them to risk it and go and vote people who cannot protect their own interests. Because that happens. They go because because of gratification. No, at times even in Cape Verde where it happens, I don't think that it is a perfect listen. I tell you, there was allegation of vote buying. So much so that one of the candidates told the supporters, he said, take what they are giving you, but go and vote your conscience. But the Electoral Commission there said, no, you don't say such things because you are belittling the integrity of the voter. You are telling them to go get corrupt before they can exercise their civic responsibility. So it is a process that will grow, that will evolve. I'm not saying that tomorrow Nigeria will be, all these things, all the problems we have enumerated will be solved tomorrow. But let there be a deliberate effort, a commitment to do that. Because in all these places, leadership is key. Leadership is necessary. It's key that we drive the vision. A visionary leader will now lay out his vision and drive it. The people will support, knowing that the person they are following has their interests at heart, and not somebody that is feathering his own nest or, after his own interests or group interests or ethnic interests or religious interests. But we're talking about national interest. Let Nigerians show patriotism that is altruistic, that the decisions and actions will be won and be seen to be altruistic, to be for the benefit, the betterment of Nigeria, for the progress of Nigeria, for the development of Nigeria. That when Nigeria is great, when Nigeria is peaceful, when Nigeria is making progress, Nigerians are also we are making progress. But when Nigeria is not making it, no matter how you as an individual, you still have a K-leg, they say. So please, you can have all the money, you can have all the private jets, but once they say, where are you coming from? They say it's Nigeria. They will lump you with all those who are not doing well because of your country, because of your green passport. Let us work for Nigeria, and not what we get from Nigeria, but what we can give.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Okoye, I don't know whether I answered your questions.
Not quite, because why I asked the question was because we know in the United States how the blacks and ethnic minorities there fought, how they, sweat and blood to be able to cast a vote, to be able to get the right to vote. We know how here in England, United Kingdom, when women weren't allowed to vote, how they fought, how they struggled to be able to have that right to vote. Yet in our own country, people get killed. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of, anything that you can imagine. Yet people don't vote. Our people don't go out and vote. I don't understand it. It just doesn't make sense.
I see what you mean, that they are scared of the violence. They don't go to vote. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know whether it's scare or fear. I don't know whether it's fear or I don't understand.
Okay, go ahead. I don't
understand what it is that people has rights. They don't use their rights. People have power. They don't use their power. This is power. This is their power, but they don't use it. Yet there is so much violence. There's so much dust raised. There's so much, people killed, bloodshed. Yet there's nothing to show for it. There's nothing to show for it.
Okay, let me try. I think I misread the question, so I gave an answer that I thought it was that it happens, but that they still go to vote, or that now it happens and then they don't exercise their right. One, let us begin from where these people are coming from. There is so much poverty in the land, my brother. And that is why somebody can come and give them 1,000. If I saw them sharing, was it 200 Naira notes? That is 400, and a tin of malt. That is what somebody was giving them. That is what they will use to vote. After voting, everybody goes home until the next 4 years. You see, that is vote buying, and that is if it is proven. The point is that the environment's there. Remember that it is not that Nigerians are timid or Africans. Remember the Aba women's riot. It was the women of Aba that rose, and they were being taxed. The men were being taxed, and the Aba women in 1929. So there is Fumilayo Kuti, Fela's mother, grandmother, and all those. You go to Benin, you go to my place in Ogwashuku, you heard of a Kumeku war that was against the British. So it is not lacking. What has happened is that when we Africans took over from the white people, we have appeared to be even worse than the whites. And that is the problem with the poor people. I think somebody said that poor person is even the worst dictator that you can get, because after he moves up the ladder, he pulls down that ladder. He doesn't want other people to come up, and that is the problem. And then maybe it has to be investigated why election will become a do or die affair. And then people are now, you know why some of them don't even criticize when things are going wrong? Because they will tell you the assumption that it will get to their turn. So that is why they don't criticize. Or they will even tell you when you are saying criticize, they say, well, are you the only person there? Please leave them. The idea is that it will get to their turn, and they are sure that they are going to do worse, behave worse than the person that is there. That is why it's a guilt kind of thing. That they know that when you put, otherwise, watch it, when anybody replaces the present government, you will pray, you will think things will get better. But what have we had? Deja vu. If not the same, it is even worse. The French people will say, plus la change, plus la même chose. The more things change, the more they remain the same for Africa. And I wish I knew the answer. But these are the things that I can glean, that it is not because the African cannot fight for their rights, but because they have been shackled, they have compromised. And so that has now put a chain on their legs to be able to go out and demand their rights, to demand their accountability from those that they have voted. In fact, they no longer vote the people, because before, whether they vote or not, the vote is counted, the result is given, which does not reflect the will of the people. I mentioned here about the fact that the courts are now the ones deciding who won an election. In such a case, do you blame some people who say no? If that is the case, why do I need to bother to go and vote? Which is wrong, but we are human. And my people will say that the little goat, we look at how the mother goat is chewing food, and we learn from them. Those who are not in government are learning from those who are there, and they have not done any better. And so it is complex, but it's also a simple thing. Leadership is key. And then followership to make sure that the leader does not derail. Hold them accountable to what they say they will do. It's not a case of telling people, I will change this give me 2 months, things will change, and they come there, nothing changes. And then people, when you now criticize that, they say you are an enemy. That is the problem. And they come after you. Have you seen, what has happened to so many people? So many people are afraid to speak, not to talk of going to vote. They are afraid. They have been they are terrified and intimidated. That is part of the problem. Where you ought to have an alternative view, you are seen as an enemy. They call you a whaler. Because you've not been given position, that's why you are talking. Instead of listening to what you are saying and then working with it. I listened to the woman in Tanzania, the lady that replaced the President Magufuli that died. She said that criticism helps her to put her on her toe to be able to make corrections and then take decisions that will. He said she likes it. And that is how it should be. That is why opposition is critical, both in America and the UK where you are. The opposition, they have shadow government. you know, that on every issue, when the government in power does that, there is somebody who is not speaking for the opposition to say, no, if we were there, this is what we will do. I think let me stop here because if we have said, I think everything that it needs to be said has been said about Nigeria. What remains now is action, action, action.
You know, I don't think our people understand the power they have.
That they have.
When you have your vote. Here, your MP will be writing to you, you know, even if it's not election year, they'll be writing to you, inviting you to the House of Commons, inviting you to things just to be able to get that vote when the time comes. You know, our people don't understand that the politicians are there to stop them.
The system is skewed. The system is skewed here. The system is not working here because it can't work. Instead, when you go there, they settle you. They have what they call settlement. You come, they say, okay, what do you want? They give you, and then you forget what you came for. And then if you have a need, and it's because they are playing on the needs, the psychology of the people. The people are poor. And these people are earning, if you know what an MP is earning in Nigeria. I've told you that the president of Cape Verde is earning less than $3,500 a month. What do our people earn in Nigeria here? The MPs. We're talking about 30-something million naira. What is the minimum wage? 30,000. Some states are not able to pay that. And then you have a family that has 4 people, parents that are training people in schools, that they cannot afford that. And when you give them, you throw whatever little money at them, they scamper. They go there they scramble to go and get whatever crumb is thrown at them. That is part of the problem. They are feeding, the politicians are using that against the people. They are the ones, the money is there, but it's circulating within a few hands. And those ones who have the money are dominating the system. They are terrorizing the people. So that is that's the situation, my brother. But I hope it will change. But like you said, the electorate themselves, the people have to use their power. They have the power. They've been used before in other places. It can be used in Nigeria. And unless and until we get to that place, the politicians will continue to do what they are doing, because they seem to have read the situation to know that Nigeria, when after 2 or 3 weeks, they will make noise, and that is the end. August, are you still there or Dan? Or am I talking to myself?
No, I think her network has just disappointed again. It's breaking up. If we can call Stella Rumuna to ask her question. Stella.
Okay, thank you very much. It's not as much a question as a contribution, because when Okoye asks, yes, this is Stella. Can I continue?
Yes, please.
I can hear you, ma'am.
Okay. When Okoye asked this question, why there's so much noise and yet people don't go out to vote, I kind of lifted my hand because I had an experience. I've always told people that it's their right and they must use that right. Otherwise, they have nobody to blame for what goes wrong. And so even though I'm not a politician, more often than not, I don't know who we're voting for, I will go out, ensure that I gather a lot of people, kind of educate them on why they must vote, and I'll always go out to cast my vote. But this last election, even I decided never again will I go out to cast my vote. Because right there at the polling booths, we're there, they counted the things in front of us, we knew how much we voted, who won, and everything. We clap, we go. And then when this thing is announced, it was, in fact, the person that got the least votes, just because he belonged to a particular party, that maybe the Baale or whatever approved of at our district, is who won that election. And when you think of the danger that people go through just to cast a vote, that actually at the end of the day amounts to nothing. Even I decided I'm not sending anybody to that war front again until there is something at least different. That's there must be, what do we gain in the long run? We take all the trouble, we sit there from morning to, unlike other places, voting in Nigeria is actually a day's job. You can collapse because you'll probably be standing from morning till night. And then you finish all that, they announce the result, and you know that this is a lie. This is not what happened there. So I felt I should say that when you say, why don't people, before now, I was one like yourself. I'll actually go to people, I go to salons everywhere I go to let people understand that it is they will say, because their votes don't count. I said, it doesn't matter. You do your own and leave the rest to God. But after this last election, oh my God, except something changes, I'm never going near any of those places anymore. I just felt I should let you know that. Thank you.
Can I come in? Can I come
yes,
in?
sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Ejime, go ahead.
Yeah, madam, I sympathize. I empathize with you? But this is the position of so many people. They have experienced what you have gone through. Some have not. Maybe the children, the youths, those who didn't see when things work, that this is what they are just. Imagine, look at that. We had NSAS. Some people came out. They will come out. They are brutalized. They are locked up. They are, a lot of things happen to them, and nobody, there's no consequence. But I will say that what we are going through is not peculiar. It's not something that hasn't happened in other places. So Koye talked about America. If he knew what they went through, Martin Luther and others, they were killed trying to make sure that the blacks there were emancipated. Okay? So it's always a violent kind of thing, because there are those who do not want to give out power, who do not want you to give you that right, because they know if they surrendered it, that you are going to question them. At times they leave the people ignorant. That's why some people don't go to school, because they know that when they now go to school, if they're educated, they will read up certain things that showed how people were able to challenge the authorities, and then you had revolution. So that is the trademark of those who are in power. They either use what they have, they use money, or they use raw power. They can use weapons to make sure that they keep others down, that they are the ones that they have the power, and then they can reign. But it is not sustainable. The Europeans, they went through that. The Americans, they went through that. It will still happen. The problem I have with ours is that I haven't seen how other people leapfrogged their own obstacles. Why are we still where we are? We ought to have learned from them to now be able to jump instead of now crawling, because we tend to we are crawling. Instead of moving ahead with technology, we are still like we're a caveman. We're still behaving like the early man. And that is not acceptable. When we are living in a digital age, you have your mobile phone that you have. We only can use about 1/3 of what the functions that it can do. Thanks to that, we're even being able to see what atrocities are being committed that otherwise will not see. So there is some progress, I would say. So let us continue, remain resilient. Let us remain, let us persevere. Let us go ahead with it and never throw our hands up and say, well, we can no longer. Who is going to do it for us? Is it Americans, because they are going to impose sanctions on those who they consider to be, when actually, who are they terrorizing? Who are the victims of the crime that these people committed? it is Nigerians. And then we want America to go and punish them for us. It is because we lack that capacity. It is because we have not reached the stage where they will stop what they are doing because they know there will be consequence. And until and unless we have that system that is strong, institutions that are strong enough to withstand government. Governments come and go, people come and go, but institutions will remain. Government is a continuum. So places like Japan, like Israel, you hear that the prime minister is gone, the next moment they will bring another one. In Japan, the same thing. But they don't depend on superhuman beings or strong personalities. They depend on a strong institution or strong institutions. That is what we will go for. Make sure that, for instance, the electoral system is such that can insist on having elections that are done with integrity. Make sure that the police are not defending those in government, but defending the common man. Make sure that the judiciary is not remains the last hope of the common man, and not the weapon that the rich man uses to oppress the poor. Make sure that all the things that are needed are required for human existence are there. That you have education for your children, you have a health system working, you have food on your table, you have social security. These are the things that are lacking, and that is the reason people do not actually want to risk their lives. Because they say if they die, there is no insurance, there is nothing. They die for nothing. And they cannot, I don't blame them if they do so. But let them also recognize that it's the sacrifice of today that will lead to the harvest of tomorrow. If we don't sacrifice today, if we don't make sure that we ask questions today, we will all be guilty. When tomorrow our grandchildren will raise the question, well, Grandpa, Grandma, what did you do? We cannot tell them because I went to a station and I found that my vote didn't count. That was why I stopped voting. No, they will say, but you ought to have persevered. You ought to continue, because this is not the only place where this happens. It happens in other places, but others have found a solution. They found a way around it. Let us do so to hold our leaders to account. To start with, to elect those who can deliver. Not because they have money, not because they steal and then they can get away with it, not because of religion, not because of ethnic consideration, not because of family nepotistic consideration, but because we believe that the person can deliver. We've seen people from the East, in the North, they are principals, they are doing well there. We have seen people from, that is the issue. You go for the best, go for competence, go for professionalism, not mediocrity because for the sake of it. That is what has brought us here. When you put a square hole, a square peg in a round hole, it is not going to fit. It won't work. And until we get there, no matter, Fela said it's perambulation, movement, motion without movement. We are not going anywhere until and unless we recognize, come to the table, say, this is where we are going. Have a vision. Walk towards the realization of that vision. Everybody, or maybe it will start with a core of people who will do that, will drive that movement. Others may have to follow. We don't all have to do it, but let us have the critical mass of those who can lead the revolution. It is a revolution that is going to happen, to change, to bring that transformation. Otherwise, it's not going to happen when you are pleading, when you are begging. You have to use force when it is required, because those who make peaceful change impossible, they're only asking for, violence. And then if that is what is required, you are not conversing that they should go to fight anybody, but to remain resolute, persevere, and then don't give
Mr.
up.
Ejime, we will soon allow you to rest. We've had a 1 hour discussion. Let's take the final question from Prince Rangpam Jr. Before we round up. Prince Pam, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dan. I don't know if I'm audible. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, it's just to make a contribution to what Stella had said earlier on. In 2003, I was the PPA Plateau State chairman. Then a party formed by Ojuzo Kalu, His Excellency. And with what transpired then, like Stella, I moved out of politics with everything I have. However, I was fortunate to be with the election observers. One thing we picked out along the way is the people's failure to come out to vote brings about a very high margin. The wrong person has a high margin of followership because people, due to voter apathy, because we have lost hope in the system, do that. So while we're moving around, there are places that the right person has a very good margin. So we will discuss, and the questions the European Union will always ask, if you claim it was rigged, if we cancel the votes in the polling stations that were rigged, will it affect the final outcome? In such cases, there are cases we find out that even if you remove the vote of the rigged polling units, the right person still wins because his people came out despite all the odds and voted en masse. So that is one thing. I think we need more voter education. We know in Nigeria, intimidation is a political strategy. It is unfortunate, but that is what obtains. And also we notice that in some polling stations, elections, everybody has finished voting by 10, but they have to wait till 2 to count. When there is low turnout, the people, other parties will now come, those with the wherewith, and buy leftover votes. They cannot buy votes that are already casted. So if our people know, and we all have that understanding that all of us should come out, whether we stay in the house, then go kill us. If we go for fun, then go kill us. So why don't we come and participate in the change process? It's the only process we have to legitimately, as voters, change government. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think that is a note to end that you, in spite of all the odds, in spite of all this intimidation and, you know, the weapons that politicians are using, that they cannot defeat the will of the people if they come out to vote. And let's not make the mistake. It will continue because politicians are desperate animals. They don't get any, they don't hear, they don't even want to listen. They don't lose elections. Let me tell you, no politician tells you they have lost. It is either because somebody has rigged, that's why they didn't win. They won. They're always winning, whether or not they lose. But that is, if you understand that, and I agree with you, this sensitization and mobilization of the electorate, and then to get them to understand that what they are throwing at them during the election is not, they can get more using the weapon, using their vote. They can get more if they get somebody, the right person to lead them, the right leadership that will take care of their own needs and not just get shortchanged after they have sold out, after they have given them the pittance, maybe a loaf of bread of 400 naira, and then they take billions with them. So all that, leadership question and then followership, and then let every other person involved in the election or political system, governance system, when they play their part, the judiciary, the legislature, the executive, the civil society, okay? Faith-based people in their churches and mosques, let them mobilize their people and teach them the right thing that everybody we are serving one God. God is not different, whether in any religion. And ethnic group, we are one people before God. We are equal. You know, these are some of the things, the basics. Maybe we need to go back to those basics and then teach ourselves the home truth that we have gotten it wrong and we need to make transformational changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And just before I let you go, just to round up, are you concerned about the outcome of Anambra State election?
Augusta, I don't know what you want me to do, whether to give you the result of the election. That I'm very far away. There is nothing, it is still unfolding. You might be surprised that everything can go smoothly, so it is premature to begin now. I am anticipating a peaceful process, okay? At least let there be less bloodshed. Let people go out and vote. And then at that level, when we get to that bridge, we will cross it. For now, it is not up to me. It is up to so many people, a lot of imponderables. I do not have control over the security system. I do not have control over the state apparatus. I do not have control over the electoral system or the electorate. So I am hopeful. I am, expectant that perhaps things will go smoothly, peacefully, and then and people will leave to that election is not a do or die thing. It is just a process that should happen in every day. People hold elections and that's the beauty of democracy. Of all the systems of government, it is not because it is perfect, but because it offers electors, the voters, the chance to change a leader that has not performed. That's one of the characteristics of democracy. Why it is better than dictatorship or autocracy, because those ones do not lend themselves to this kind of. It is only democracy that does that, and that is why of all those that have been tried, it appears to be. And it is not the system really that is the problem. It is those who operate, it is the operators. And that is it. Not religion, but those the practitioners. Not the any particular race or ethnic group, but the individuals, the characters. Okay? So these are we human beings. We are the problem. And until we purge ourselves of those things, negative forces, and embrace things that will make us develop and make progress. The human race is endangered, but it's all over the place. Let people continue to play their part. You are playing your part. We are playing our part to say, well, listen, canvassing for peace, saying, no, listen, there is nothing to gain from violence. War is an ill wind that blows nobody any good. And rigging of election does not make, you won't even have the mind to speak, knowing that you cheated to get to where you are. It doesn't give anybody any comfort. No matter how hardened your heart, you know that, and you will pay. If all of us believe that there is always a day of judgment, I think because many Nigerians, we are more religious than all the many nations, and they say we are also the happiest. I don't know whether we are still the happiest people in the world. So, Augusta, you are smiling. So, thank God that we are ending on a smiling note. Thank you for having me. Is Dan still there, or he has gone?
I'm here, Augusta. Where are you?
I can see her face, but she's not talking.
Okay.
Or maybe the network.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think she's frozen. Thank you very much, Mr. Ejime, for being with us. Felix Obioma, I don't know why you raised up your hand when our time is always off. Can you say what you want to say?
Anything,
can you just say in 1 minute, please? Unmute yourself. 1 minute.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me 1 minute to say just 2 lines. I think as someone who has participated in elections, both in different states, including the last election that was held 2019 as a returning officer, I want to say this: the most critical line in this election, the most critical point is the collection unit. That is also where violence starts, and that's where every other decision is taken. In most cases, the people who are going to serve as returning officers, both manual and electronic, people who are on ground do not have access to their contact. They don't know them in person. And people who deploy them do not even influence their decision. It is most times what happened within that circle is what determines what they will do. Some people want to be very transparent and fair. but the pressure that will come from within that circle, sometimes it will be life-threatening. Even when you want to just do the right thing, you will see that you may not get away from there if you try to do that. I'm telling you from a personal experience. At least I was in charge of over 120 polling units during 2019 as a returning officer in that particular area. So if we want to get it right, I think the most important thing is for the security agents to secure these people that are going to serve as returning officer and give them guarantee that if they have the courage to do the right thing, that their life is safe. I think by that we'll go a long way in getting a very credible outcome from this election. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I think you have raised a very key point, and then that is why there is what you call review after each election. If Felix, if you have, I hope you have not waited till today to give us what you are saying now. It would have gone into, even when you do not identify yourself, but make it known if you are trending because of that. But when you come out, you can also put in your review issue to say this was what was observed and this is what we ought to do. I mean, I hope you did that, because if you didn't and it is only now, well, you know now it will only affect subsequent elections. But if you had done it since 2019, they perhaps, don't forget whether they take it up on board or whatever, just do your part, okay? I know that we cannot pretend that there are no pressures. There are pressures everywhere, even America. Remember what they went through, what some states went through in America. You people, you are aware of it, you know, and that was almost, that's the most of one of the most developed democracies in the world. So we will be naive if we think that we'll just have a free passage. No. There will be obstacles, but the challenge is that we must be prepared to overcome them. You know, that is the real thing. If we say, well, in the world there will be no, after all, the good and the bad will always coexist in the world. There are bad people and the good people. The good tree, there is the wheat and then the weed. Remember what happened in the Bible about the person who planted wheat in the morning, in the afternoon, and then in the night, the enemy went and planted the wheat. And someone said, let us cut it down. Say, no, wait until harvest time. Because if you do not take time, you can destroy both the wheat and the weed at the same time. So there is always payback. There is always judgment time. There is always time, which is for you after the post-election analysis will enable you to give your opinion, to give your assessment so that it will help the process moving forward. Okay, so don't worry. What you are going through is there. Many others are going through that, but just be professional in what you are doing, and know that even if they prevent you from doing that while you are there, you have thank God for technology. You know, you can record certain things, you can play them back, you can send messages, you know, but just take reasonable risk. Don't go and put yourself on the line because it's only, you know, dead men, they don't tell tales. You need to be alive to be able to narrate the story.
Exactly. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Paul Ejime, International Affairs Analyst. Mr. Ejime has served as election observer in several African countries. So numerous. For as long as I've known him, he has been serving as election observer, monitoring communication issues in ECOWAS, AU, and other international organizations. A noteworthy journalist of note who has also served in a lot of foreign countries when he was a journalist before he became a big man. Thank you, sir.
Oh, you mean journalists are not big men? I'm still a journalist. I'm still a reporter.
Okay, Augusta, you are back. So conclude your program, please.
Yes, sir. Just before I let you go, Paul Ejime, any closing remarks?
Well, he has already given his closing remarks.
Oh, okay. My
Augusta,
network did not permit me to see that. I
okay, let
apologize.
me.
That's as much
The,
as.
yeah, the
Please go
closing
ahead.
remark is that we are hoping for peace in Anambra. So that there will be no bloodletting. Let the process, let everybody, all the stakeholders, the security agents, the electoral umpire, the government apparatus, the voters themselves, civil society, let the voters go out and vote peacefully, and then avoid violence, and then protect, their votes. Let them remain there for the votes to be counted, and then make sure that it is done. It might require some sacrifice, not question of giving up or saying I'm disappointed. That is not going to take any. When you fail to go and cast your vote, somebody will take advantage. These politicians will take advantage. For instance, in a polling station where you are supposed to have 500 and only 100 turned up, you leave the gap for somebody who wants to rig to bring in fake voters to fill the gap. But if everybody went there, there will be less, the portion that will allow for them to rig might be, if 400 people, went out of 500. I mean, so and when after that, Joseph talked about the collating center. They should now do that. The what is it called? Digital system. Your mobile phone can do a lot. If you can't do anything in that where you are in that closet, you can excuse yourself, go somewhere, and send something to whoever you want to send that can send it out. And let us not wait until too late before we complain about what we have seen, any challenge that can be rectified in subsequent elections. Augusta, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. And that is Mr. Paul Ejime. He is an international affairs specialist, and we have been discussing Anambra 2021 is a credible, legitimate election possible. Thank you so much to all the participants that participated in today's conversation. Remember to follow us on YouTube and Facebook. We are